I have Jeffery Simmons over Jurrell Casey on the Tennessee Titans all-time defense, but I think Jeffery Simmons might be losing his lead. I'll explain on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, I'm going to be doing my all-time starting Tennessee Titans defense. On yesterday's show, we did the starting offense. Go check that out if you missed it. But I am going to start by talking about Jeffery Simmons against Jurrell Casey, which is actually getting closer as we've gone throughout the last few years, which doesn't make sense, but I will explain. We'll also talk about why Harold Landry, now that he's gone, deserves his flowers, and I'll tell you why it's not even close. Kevin Byard is the best defensive back in Tennessee Titans history. Before we get into all of it, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, now is the perfect time to be one. Tennessee Titans training camp kicks off in 2 weeks. And on tomorrow's show, I am going to begin the 2025 Locked On Titans training camp positional preview series. I'm going to go position by position throughout the entire roster, tell you every single person who's on the Titans heading into training camp, who I think is a lock to make it, who's on the bubble to make it, who's a long shot to make it. Great discussion coming over the next few weeks. Make sure that you don't miss any of that. And we're getting closer and closer to 20,000 subscribers. So if you're on YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe. But with that being said, when we look at the all-time Tennessee Titans starting defense, we have to start with the defensive line. The O-line, the defensive line, the Titans have had some pretty good players. Now, the number one defensive lineman in Tennessee Titans history, to me, easily, we start at defensive end. It's Javon Curse, the freak. Not only because of his incredible rookie year performance in 1999, the Super Bowl year where he had 14 and a half sacks, was defensive rookie of the year, all pro, but he just set the standard for what the Tennessee Titans want to be on the defensive line. 7 years with the team, 231 tackles, 52 sacks, 3 Pro Bowls to go with the 1 All-Pro year. Javon Curse, the freak. He was the final piece that led to that Super Bowl run season. He was what put them over the top. Then you look at the other defensive end position, and to me, it's not very hard either. I go with Kyle Vanden Bosch. Kyle Vanden Bosch spent 5 years with the team, 270 tackles, 38 and a half sacks, 14 forced fumbles, 3 Pro Bowls spread out throughout a few different years, his 5 years with the team. Vanden Bosch was just a constant presence, was just a constant contributor. Absolutely the top 2 defensive ends for the all-time starting defense. To me, it's not really that close when we start to get to the next guy. But when we get inside, things start to get a little more complicated. Albert Haynesworth, to me, gets one of the defensive tackle spots. 7 years with the team, 272 tackles, 24 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 2 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro seasons. He was one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL for a few years in the first decade of the 2000s. Albert Haynesworth deserves his spot. But the next spot, again, that's where it gets complicated. For the last few years, I have said Jeffery Simmons. Coming off the 2021-2022 season, he was a 2-time All-Pro. He was dominant, 3-sack games, biggest stage against the Bengals in the playoffs, the Rams in prime time. Big Jeff was just making all the plays. So, although he didn't have the stat accumulation that Jurrell Casey did during 9 seasons with the Titans. Simmons has only been with the Titans for 6 years. So Jurrell Casey, 9 seasons. Of course, Jeffery Simmons didn't have the numbers that Casey did because he had played so much longer with the team. But it seemed pretty clear, hey, Big Jeff is going to be the best interior defensive lineman in the history of this franchise, and it won't be very long. But here's the reality. Jeffery Simmons has taken a little bit of a step back in the last couple of years. We've seen only 10.5 sacks combined in 2 seasons. 16 games last year, but 12 games the year before that. Just hasn't quite been as consistent, coming out of the gate strong. He's taken a step back as a player. And he needs to jump forward this year. Big opportunity for him. He needs to. That's why I made him a make or break player last week. Not that it's going to make or break for his career, but who he is to this new era of the Tennessee Titans will be decided this year. I think he'll be traded if the Tennessee Titans don't see the level of play from him that made him an All-Pro those 2 seasons. Because he's just not going to be worth the money. And with where the Titans are at as a team, probably wouldn't make sense to have him. But again, as the years go by and Big Jeff kind of takes a step back from that level of production that he had, you look at Jurrell Casey, 9 seasons, 493 tackles, 51 sacks. 51 sacks. Big Jeff has 31.5 in 6 years. Casey had 51 in 9. Is Big Jeff going to get there? If Big Jeff plays 3 more seasons, is he going to have 20 sacks in 3 seasons? It's not a guarantee. He should, but we've never seen a double-digit sack season from Big Jeff. I've been asking for it for 3 years, and we haven't got it, and it's gotten lower. 84 tackles for loss for Jurrell Casey. Jeffery Simmons in 6 seasons, only 49. He ain't going to catch him. Casey had 5 Pro Bowls. Simmons had 3, 2 All-Pros. Jeffery Simmons at his peak is a better player than Jurrell Casey. But Casey seems to be much more consistent than Jeffery Simmons. And Jeffery Simmons gets his credit for being a part of, that 3-year stretch of great football, and he was the biggest reason on defense. Well, I would say he's the second biggest reason, Kevin Byard. We'll talk about you in a second. But my point is, I'll still take Jeffery Simmons. I'll go Curse, Vandenbosch, Hainsworth, Simmons. But if Big Jeff were to have another disappointing year and then potentially get traded at the deadline or get traded next offseason, and he only has 7 seasons with the Titans, I'm switching it next year. I would switch it back. I would switch Jurrell Casey to be over Jeffery Simmons because Simmons seemed like he was on the path and never lived up to it. So that is something that, again, it's a make or break year in terms of what his Tennessee Titans career is going to be going forward. Is he going to be just another guy who was pretty good? Another Albert Hainsworth? Pretty good player? Or is it going to be, something more than that? That's what I'm looking for. Big year for Jeffery Simmons ahead, but Jurrell Casey maybe has gone underappreciated because Big Jeff was so good for those couple of years, but hasn't been able to duplicate that in quite some time. So we need to see it. But now we need to talk about the linebackers, near and dear to my heart, some of my favorite Tennessee Titans players ever, including what I would say is a top 3 favorite player of all time of mine, and Mr. Monday Night, Keith Bulluck. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on other things. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop as you get closer to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, a clear seat view, lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime truly does have the best features in the industry, and that's why I've bought NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, concert, comedy tickets all on Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, looking at the all-time Tennessee Titans starting defense. We have our defensive line in place with Javon Curse and Kyle Vanden Bosch at defensive end, Albert Haynesworth and Jeffery Simmons on the interior, but Jurrell Casey might be getting that spot back very, very soon. Now we look at linebacker. Before we do want to remind you that I appreciate you making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Our positional preview series, training camp preview series is starting on tomorrow's episode with quarterback. And I think running back, I might just do quarterback and running back in the same one. I think that makes sense for everybody. But with that being said, let's talk about linebackers. Because the number one linebacker in Tennessee Titans history, the GOAT linebacker in Tennessee Titans history, and quite frankly, no one's even close. It's not even a competition. It's Keith Bulluck, Mr. Monday Night. I used to wear the arm shivers back. They didn't have like how they have them now, where they're literally like Nike compression sleeves that go to your elbow. Mine had like pads on the front. It was hilarious. But I wanted to be just like Keith Bulluck, and I used to wear the pads, and I had gloves, and I was a linebacker, and I just loved Keith Bulluck. My absolute favorite, him and Ray Lewis, by far my favorite linebackers of all time. I looked up to those guys. They were big, big favorites for me, but Keith Bulluck deserves the love. I mean, 10 years with the Tennessee Titans, had over 1,000 tackles, 1,078 tackles, not 51 sacks. That's certainly not the case. 19 interceptions. His ability to play in pass coverage, like he was just like the ultimate athletic, long linebacker, could do it all, was physical in the box, but could play pass coverage. Again, 19 interceptions, like absolutely fantastic. Made tons of Pro Bowls, 2-time All-Pro. Keith Bulluck is a dog, okay? Just no doubt about it. Keith Bulluck is a dog. Best Titans linebacker of all time, no question. But I'm going to cheat a little bit with my number 2. Because you could say he's an edge. Maybe I should include him in the pass rush, D-line conversation with Curse and Vanden Bosch and all that. But I think that Harold Landry's versatility earns him a spot here. I think Harold Landry, it just happened. He just left. He's still in the league. But I think we look back, Harold Landry is the second best linebacker the team has had. 6 years with the team. Critical seasons, too. He was drafted 2018. Critical seasons with the team. 397 tackles. Physical against the run. Would set the edge. Fell off quite a bit last year in that regard. But for most of his career, the versatility. 397 tackles, 50.5 sacks. We talked about Javon Curse. Javon Curse has 52 sacks in his Titans career in 7 seasons. Harold Landry has 50.5 in 6. 3 forced fumbles. Could have done a little more there. 2 interceptions. Again, the versatility of Harold Landry. When Harold Landry was looking for a contract, I was a big proponent of giving him a new deal. Not only because he's a good secondary edge rusher. Of course, the Titans never paired him with a good number 1. Tried to sign Bud Dupree, who was also a number 2 at best. But he never had a true number 1 edge rusher to properly slot him in the right spot. But still, regardless, multiple seasons of 10-plus sacks, a 9-plus sacks or 9-sack season. He just was super productive. And the versatility to play against the run, rush the quarterback. He could drop back into coverage when the Titans would run those zone blitzes and those different pressures. The Landry loop. He was so good at the loop stunt, where you would have nose tackle and Jeffery Simmons as a 3 technique, both slant to the outside towards the offensive tackle, and then Landry would loop right behind him off their butts through the A-gap in to get the quarterback. He was so athletic the way he could bend that edge like a motorcycle going around a curve. Just beautiful bend from Harold Landry, beautiful versatility, always put the football team first, always was a hard-working guy, always showed up. I was a huge fan of Harold Landry, and I know that, last year he really fell off the cliff in terms of pass rush production, not in the sacks. He got the sacks, and that's confusing to some people, but if you look at his pressure rates, he got lucky, if we're honest, with some of the sack numbers that he got. 9 sacks last year. He got a little lucky with some of those sacks. He didn't earn all of them necessarily. But on the down-to-down basis, it just wasn't there with him anymore. So some people will have the recency bias and all of that, and then the ACL tear, he misses a season. That'll sour some people. But Harold Landry, to me, is a top 3 linebacker in franchise history, and I'm going to put him as the number 2 linebacker in franchise history. Now, the third linebacker spot, that's where it's a little more difficult. You have 3 people who are in the running, in my opinion. You have Wesley Woodyard, you have David Thornton, and you have Cedric Godfrey. Makes it tough. All right. But I'm going with Wesley Woodyard. So Thornton, 4 seasons with the team, 369 tackles, 23 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions from 2006 to 2009. So a pretty good season in there in 2008 with 13-3. Came over from the Colts as a free agent. Good addition. And then Godfrey, only 3 seasons. Now, they were critical seasons, 2000 to 2002. Critical seasons for certain. But only 3 seasons. 231 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, only 1 interception. And then look at Wesley Woodyard, who doesn't necessarily get the credit that he deserves. Because, again, he kind of was the first couple of seasons in the dead period. 2014 to 2009. But when I talked on yesterday's episode about the players who helped rebuild this team into a competitive football team again after the CJ2K era died and the team was awful. Awful. The guys who helped build this thing back up, they get immense credit, in my opinion. 6 seasons Wesley Woodyard is a starting middle linebacker. 517 tackles, 36 tackles for loss, 20 sacks, good at blitzing, 3 interceptions. So more seasons, more interceptions, a significantly more amount of sacks and tackles for loss, significantly more tackles in general. Now, Thornton racked up the tackle numbers, so maybe he could have had more if he had 2 more seasons. But Wesley Woodyard crushes in the statistical categories. He was a part of rebuilding this franchise. Wesley Woodyard gets the final linebacker spot for me. So Keith Bulluck, Harold Landry, Wesley Woodyard. Those are my 3 linebackers to go with: Javon Curse, Kyle Van Bosch, Albert Haynesworth, and Jeffery Simmons on the defensive line. But now we got to talk about the secondary, where there are a lot of guys who I really loved as a fan growing up. Titans fans, let's continue and cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're doing my all-time starting defense. We did offense on yesterday's show. Make sure that you check that out if you missed it. Doing defense today. Tomorrow starts our training camp positional preview series. Going to go through every single position on the roster. Make sure that you don't miss that. Thanks for making Locked On Titans your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camp gets closer, moves are being made. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So doing the Tennessee Titans all-time starting defense, we have made it to the secondary. And when we look at cornerback, I think it's pretty clear-cut. There are 2 cornerbacks that are at the top. Number 1, Samari Rolle, who to me is by far the number 1 cornerback in Titans history. 297 tackles, 7 seasons with the team, 79 passes defensed, 23 interceptions, made a Pro Bowl, made an All-Pro 1 year as well. Samari Rolle held it down throughout the best run of Tennessee Titans football, and he looked awesome. He had so much swag out on the field. Samari Rolle gave the Titans life. He made plays, took away passes. Big-time player. Really love Samari Rolle. But number 2 is Cortland Finnegan, who might be one of the feistiest, if not the most feisty, Tennessee Titans player of all time. Known mostly for the fist fight that he got in with Andre Johnson. But 6 seasons with the team, 472 tackles. Samari Rolle played 7 seasons and had 297. Cortland Finnegan had 6 seasons with 472. Now, the Titans' defense was way worse with Cortland Finnegan, so he had to make more tackles as a defensive back anyway. But he also was so physical. He wanted to go in and make all those tackles. 68 passes defended. 14 interceptions. See, he didn't have the ball production that Samari Rolle did. 9 more interceptions for Samari Rolle. Just more ball production. But, excuse me, Cortland Finnegan also had 1 All-Pro season and 1 Pro Bowl season. So, they're tied in the accolade department. Cortland Finnegan is definitely number 2, but he is definitely number 2. Like, he's not close enough to Samari Rolle to really be in the conversation, but he's definitely ahead of anyone else. Number 3 at cornerback is Roger McCreary, getting close as a solid player. Do we put Malcolm Butler in there, who had some solid seasons for the Titans? I don't know. And we know that you want to go back to like Parrish Cox and stuff like that. The mid-teens Titans teams had some of the worst cornerback play of all time. So Cortland Finnegan was more of the CJ 2K cornerback, Samari Rolle, the Eddie George, Steve McNair cornerback, and we haven't really had a really, really good one since that. You know, it's kind of been guys who had good seasons, like a Dory Jackson had a good season or 2 with the Titans. Malcolm Butler had a good season, you know, but it's not quite good enough. Moving to safety. There is no doubt. Not only is he maybe my favorite Titan of all time, yeah, I would say so. Kevin Byard's my favorite Tennessee Titan of all time. But he is by far the best defensive back in Tennessee Titans history. Like, over Samari Rolle, no question about it. Don't let anyone lie to you. He is absolutely the better defensive back over Samari Rolle. 8 seasons with the team, so more than Samari Rolle. 2 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro selections, which he probably should have had more. If he wasn't a Tennessee Titan, the level of play he was at, he would have had more. 674 tackles, 27 interceptions, also 2 touchdowns in those. Well, had a touchdown pass as well, if you want to throw that in there, from the fake punt that he threw to Dane Cruikshank that one time. That was awesome. But left-handed, Kevin Byard. Left-handed, by the way. But just hear that. Kevin Byard, by far, the best defensive back in Tennessee Titans history, and deserves to be considered one of the top 10, if not top 5, players of franchise history. Kevin Byard is that great, was that great for the Tennessee Titans, deserves that kind of love, the production, the accolades, the winning teams that he was a part of, the catalyst on those teams that he was. It was Jeff and Byard, and they made the defense around them. So maybe it's just my bias showing. I don't care. Kevin Byard deserves all the love. But the number 2 safety spot goes to Michael Griffin. Criminally underrated by the fan base. Michael Griffin deserves more love. 9 seasons with the team, 2 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 All-Pro appearance. And when I talk about All-Pro appearances, I include second-team All-Pros in those. 578 tackles, 25 interceptions. Michael Griffin made plays, man. Michael Griffin made plays. So to me, he is the number 2 safety in franchise history. Now, you want to get into some older guys like Blaine Bishop. Blaine Bishop deserves Nashville radio host now, you know what I mean? Blaine Bishop, the hitman, deserves his credit, deserves his love. But I think Michael Griffin and Kevin Byard were better players. They made more of an impact on the team. Chris Hope, I always liked him growing up. You could throw him in there if you wanted to. Lamont Thompson, we want to mention way back when, you know. But to me, there's Kevin Byard, Michael Griffin, Blaine Bishop, and then there's a gap. But I have Michael Griffin and Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard, obviously, there's a big gap there ahead as the safety. So starting defense, Javon Curse, Kyle Vandenbosch at defensive end, Albert Hainsworth, Jeffery Simmons, for now, at defensive tackle, Keith Bulluck, Harold Landry, Wesley Woodyard, at linebacker, Samare Rolle, Cortland Finnegan, Michael Griffin, Kevin Byard in the secondary. Let me know your all-time defense down below. Again, if you missed the all-time offense, check that out. Yesterday's episode, evergreen for you guys there. Training camp in 2 weeks. Can't wait. Football's right around the corner. That's going to do it for me today, though, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.